Hello besties, welcome back to my book channel. As I believe most of you know, I was actually in a terrible book slump at the end of December and going through most of January. But recently, I am so proud to say that I am out of this reading slump and now reading like crazy. And so I thought this would be the perfect time to make a video where I not only recommend you guys a bunch of books that I think are perfect for getting out of a reading slump, but also share some of my tips that I usually use when I am in a reading slump. I definitely was using a lot of these tips last month. And so if you guys are only interested in the book recommendations, you guys can go ahead and skip to this timestamp. But if you want to stick around and hear some of my tips and tricks, I'm gonna jump into those right now. The first tip that I have for you guys is lock your phone. This is a tip that I don't know why I don't ever see other people talking about it, but when I was in my reading slump, I noticed that I was just having a really difficult time picking up my book over picking up my phone. Like I was getting the urge to scroll and basically waste my time all of the time. And so I never wanted to read. And so what I had to do is literally shove my phone in a drawer, hide it, put it on airplane mode, do not disturb, whatever was going to work for me on that day. So I literally had to pick up my book. But once I picked up my book, things got a lot easier. It's just the temptation of having my phone around that made reading really, really hard. And once my phone was put away, I was able to get through a lot more books. Tip number 2 is one of my die-hard tricks for getting out of a reading slump. And for me, that is audiobooks. I sometimes have a hard time picking up books, as I've said, and sometimes the easiest way for me to get through things is by listening to a book. Now, I do feel like this has to be done a certain way because I think audiobooks sometimes can make a book a lot worse. But last week, I actually posted a video about the best audiobooks that I've ever listened to. So I'll link that video down below. I literally posted it last week. And so if you guys are looking for good audiobooks to listen to that are actually going to make the book experience better, in my opinion, that video has a very solid list of books that I think you guys could listen to. Audiobooks are amazing for me because all you have to do is press play and do something else. You could go on a walk. You could crochet, do a craft, do a puzzle. Like you can do anything and still be getting through books. Tip number 3, and this is something I definitely did do at the end of December, and that is reread one of your favorite books. I ended up rereading A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which is one of my all-time favorite books. And it just made me so happy because every time I picked up this book, I felt so comforted and so joyful over just like the idea of being back in one of my favorite worlds with some of my favorite characters. So if you have a favorite book that you've been itching to pick back up, use this time that you're in a reading slump to go back to those books that you just really, really love and can maybe help remind you that you do in fact love reading and this slump that you're in is temporary. Tip number 4 is do not force yourself to finish a book if you don't want to. Towards the end of January, I ended up being in the middle of 4 different books because I would pick up a book, feel the slump, put it aside. I picked up another book, felt the slump still, put it aside. And basically I kept doing this until I found something that got me out of the reading slump. And then immediately I was able to go back and finish all 4 of those books really, really quickly. But I knew in the moment when I was picking them up that those weren't the books that were going to make me want to keep reading, like want to just pick up a bunch of other books. So I literally was on a journey to just find the book to get me out of this slump and then go back to the books that I soft DNF'd. And I will be talking about the book that single-handedly got me out of said slump. Stick around. And then my final tip number 5 is romanticize reading. Get out of the house to go read a book. I think sometimes when you're in your home, you are subject to a lot of different distractions. This could be your phone, like I said at the beginning of the video, but it could be your roommate. It could be your kids if you have kids. It could be your chores, anything that you have to do around your house. And so sometimes if you force yourself out, that can be a great way to force yourself to read a book because you're in a different space and all you have with you is your book, hopefully. That's what I would do. Those were all the tips that I wanted to share with you guys at the beginning of this video. If you guys have any tips or things that help you get out of a reading slump, maybe comment those down below and we can all help each other out here because I definitely missed a lot. Those are just the ones that work for me and worked for me during this most recent slump. Now let's talk about some books that I think could help you get out of a reading slump. Also, so sorry, the sun is going crazy. The clouds are in and out. So if things are overexposed, that is why. As I mentioned before, there is one book that single-handedly got me out of a reading slump in the last 2 months. And I'm so excited to talk to you guys about it because I loved it so much. And you guys were the ones that were like, girl, you gotta read this. And that book is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. Guys, I loved this book. I not only was captivated by it, but it was the kind of book that I could not put down. And anytime I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it and wishing that I was reading it. If you guys are unfamiliar with this series, this world basically was colonized by the gods. And then the gods mated with mortals and they had children called descended. But in present day, the world is very divided. Mortals live together and the descended live together. And we're following our main character, DM, who is a mortal, and her mom went missing, and DM basically has to take on the responsibilities that her mom had as a healer. Her mom's responsibilities did include occasionally going to the palace to work with the descended. I honestly don't want to say more because there's a mystery, of course, of her mom being gone, but there's so many other things that end up happening that DM gets involved in because of this connection that she has with the palace, and then like tensions that are brewing in her world. I was addicted to this book. I had such a good time reading it. You guys were very right about this. Book number 2 is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I absolutely love this book, and I feel like it's somewhat popular but deserves to be a lot more popular than it is. In this world, witches basically can't spend time together or like be in the same room or same region because their powers interact and become too powerful. And Mika pretends that she's a witch online, like her social media presence is that she's a witch, but nobody actually believes she's a witch until one day she gets a call from this man asking if she could come and tutor 3 young witch children. And Mika's confused because she's like, first of all, witches aren't supposed to be together. Like, how is it possible that there's 3 young children who are witches all together? And second of all, I look like I'm faking magic online. How does this person possibly know that I'm a real witch? And so she goes to teach these children. It ends up being a really cute, sweet, magical, witchy romance book. I love this, and this is definitely the kind of book that you can absolutely fly through in a day or two. The characters are really sweet, the magic is really interesting, and it's just a heartwarming story that I think will show you that reading is wonderful. And yeah, I definitely think this would get you out of a slump. Before we move on to the next book, I really quickly wanted to thank the lovely sponsor of today's video, Quince. Quince is a clothing brand that I have worked with several times in the past. You guys probably already know that I'm obsessed with them and their products. They have incredibly high quality and affordable pieces, and so I just wanted to share with you guys a few pieces that Quince sent me. The first one is actually this boat neck tank top. I am obsessed with the boat neck cut. I don't know what it is. It just feels like it elevates a tank top even more. And the weather is finally getting warmer in Texas, and so I just feel so cute and so springy in this top. And I in fact love this top so much that I couldn't help myself from getting it in the oatmeal color. I just think this is so cute and so adorable. And again, I just feel like anything in the boat neck cut is more elevated. The next thing I got are these navy stretch pants, and I love these because they're so cute and so comfortable. I feel like my favorite thing is when I can look good and also feel comfortable. I feel like for a long time those things did not always go together, and so these navy stretch pants are just adorable and perfect for these transitional seasons from winter to spring. This is a dress that I've already worn twice now, I think. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Red is one of my favorite colors to wear, and this dress is just going to be so perfect for the spring and summer months ahead. I love it. It's lightweight, it's cute, it's casual. It's the kind of dress that you can just throw on going to the beach, if you're going to the pool, and that's what I look for. The easier, the comfier, the better. And finally, I have always been obsessed with overalls, but I've been too scared to test them out for myself. And so this felt like the perfect opportunity to get myself a pair of overalls. This is the pair that I got. They go all the way down to your feet, and I tried them on and I love them, and I'm so happy because again, I've been too scared to experiment with an overall, but I think I found the perfect first pair of overalls because I'm obsessed with these. If you guys are interested in checking out any of these pieces, I'm gonna leave everything linked in my description box down below. But also, if you guys just want to check out anything from the Quince website, I am gonna link that for you. Again, they are one of my absolute favorite brands to work with. I've worked with them so many times. I probably sound like a broken record, but they're the absolute absolute best. And so I'm going to leave everything linked in the description box down below. With all of that said, let's move on to our next book. Book number 3 is All That's Left in the World by Eric Brown. This is a queer YA sci-fi story that I read a few years ago now, but I read it so incredibly fast because I was addicted to it. And this book takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where almost everyone has been killed by this pandemic that swept through. Our two main characters are Andrew and Jameson, and they have survived the pandemic but lost just about everything in the world that matters to them. And they end up going on this journey where they rely on each other for not only like happiness and joy, but also genuine, literal survival. This is also very much an adventure where our two main characters are moving from place to place to place, but I found it to be very interesting, very engaging. There is a romance that brews between Andrew and Jameson, and it's really, really sweet and sad and heartwarming. Like, I just feel like it checks a lot of those boxes that I look for in a book. You can fly through this one. I had to include a thriller in this list, and so today I wanted to talk about The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. This is the most recent Frida McFadden book that I have read, and I'll say it right now, the plot twist definitely got me at the end, which always gives a thriller a few extra points because I like to be surprised, I like to be shocked. But in this thriller, we're following our main character Sydney, who is basically trying to date in New York City, and it's going terribly. She's like, all the men are horrible, they suck, they're not the kind of people that I want to be dating, until she ends up meeting this guy who seems perfect. But it says on the back of the book that the perfect guy may not be as perfect as he seems. And that's kind of the premise for this story. I read this book with my book club and ended up having such a good time reading it. You guys already know I'm not a huge thriller person, but this is one that I saved for the last minute before book club and then absolutely flew through it and had time to spare. I think this one's great for if you're slumping. Book number 5 is a book that I quite literally could not put down if my life depended on it. And this is a book that was also very popular a few years ago, but I just arrived in the last few months. And that book is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I know that this book was so popular a long time ago, but when One Golden Summer came out, let me grab it. But when One Golden Summer came out, which is the next book in this little duology, it really motivated me to go back and pick up Every Summer After because I heard such amazing reviews for this book. And in this book, we have our main character, Persephone, and her family would go to their lake house every single summer. And next door to her family lake house lived Sam and Charlie. And she ends up becoming absolute best friends with Sam. And of course, they fall in love when they're kids. And it's just the sweetest romance to watch them become best friends and then to watch them become like lovers, I guess. The sun is setting now. Okay, hopefully that's better. But of course, something happens and they lose touch and don't see each other for 10 years. And then we follow them in the present timeline when they fall back in love with each other. I am gonna say this though, while it is true that I absolutely could not put this book down, I personally really did not enjoy the ending of this book. And so I just wanted to warn you guys that there is a possibility that you could be like me and really not love the ending of this story. A lot of people really, really love this book, which is why I'm putting it in this video. And I loved the first like 90%. I just had a hard time with the end. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was all out in the open when I did recommend this book. I'm having a really difficult time with the sun right now. It keeps moving and I'm gonna try to ignore it. Up next, we have Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is a series that I have not recommended on my channel in quite a while now, but I do feel like they are the perfect books to recommend for a book slump video because these are actually graphic novels. And graphic novels are perfect because you literally fly through them. I think I read the entire series in just a few days. But not only are these fun and easy to fly through, but they're really, really sweet and heartfelt, and you have a beautiful story within these books. And we basically have our two main characters, Nick and Charlie. They both are in high school, and Charlie is openly gay with his friends, with his family. The people in his life know that he is gay. But at school, he starts to fall for his very straight classmate, Nick. And him and Nick end up playing on the same rugby team. But Charlie starts to get the feeling that maybe Nick isn't quite as straight as he thinks he is, and the two of them end up falling in love. And Nick has to come to terms with his sexuality. He has to come to terms with telling the people in his life. It's honestly just a wonderful coming of age graphic novel. They're so great and literally so perfect for a reading slump because you'll get like 5 books done in 2 days if you wanted to. And I think that feels really good. Book number 7 is The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. Jessa Hastings is an author whose writing I personally find incredibly addicting. Not everyone likes her writing, so just know that when you pick up a book by this author, you will probably either really love her books or really not. I've found that her stories are very hit or miss. The Conditions of Will is my personal favorite book from Jessa. I absolutely love this story. And in this book, we follow our main character, Georgia, who is living in London, but one day she gets a call from her family basically saying that some tragedy has happened, and so she needs to fly back home. And so she gets on a plane and flies back to, I want to say, South Carolina in the United States. And another interesting thing also that I'll mention about Georgia is she has been trained to be an expert body reader and like face reader. So she's kind of like a human lie detector. She can literally just look at someone and know what they're saying, what they're feeling, that kind of thing. And I found that like quality in a character to be very different. And when she's home, she ends up meeting a man named Sam Penny, and they end up having a bit of a romance. But along with this romance, there is a mystery that's going on in her family that Georgia's trying to uncover. And there's also a lot of fiction elements with this book, and of course with every book that you pick up. Be sure to check trigger warnings because there are some very intense topics discussed in here. But this was a book where I actually could not put it down. This is a thick book and I read it so fast because every single spare minute of time that I had, I was reading this book. Did I say this already? But this was literally my favorite book of 2025. I loved it so much, partially because it was amazing, partially because I couldn't put it down. Book number 8 is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. You guys already know that Abby Jimenez is one of my favorite authors. I have now read 5 books by her and I have loved every single one of them. And so for this video, I wanted to get you guys hooked on where I started with Abby Jimenez, and that is the Part of Your World series. In this book, we have our main character, Alexis, and she is a doctor in a long family line of doctors. But one day her car breaks down outside of this small town. She ends up meeting Daniel there, who is a carpenter among a few other jobs in this town because it's a small town and everyone kind of has to pitch in a few different ways. But he is primarily a carpenter, and she ends up having a one-night stand with Daniel, which is totally out of her normal behavior. And then she goes back to the big city. But of course, the two of them can't stop thinking about each other, and a romance does emerge between the two of them. A few things to know about this book. It is age gap, which I normally don't like, but I loved it. In this book, it was exceptionally done. There's a lot of depth in here. I feel like there's a great mix of rom-com and deep emotional character development, which I absolutely love. And this is just a book that I could not put down, and I would say that about all of Abby's books. This series is amazing. I recommend starting here with book 1. Book number 9 is an absolute favorite for me. I haven't recommended it in a while, and so now felt like the perfect time. And that book is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a literary fiction story, but when I was reading this book in my own personal experience, I was so hooked on it. Again, this is a story that when I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it. And that's kind of been my criteria for all of these books, that I do feel like the fiction genre doesn't always get a lot of credit for doing that when there are some incredible fiction books that are such page turners and you just don't want to stop reading them. And in this book, we have our two main characters, Sam and Sadie, and they meet when they're young children at a hospital. Actually, I won't say what they were doing there, but they meet at a hospital and they end up forming a really close bond to each other and grow up to be some of the world's most famous video game designers. The two of them together as adults design an incredible video game, but they end up growing apart and growing back together, and they are friends. This isn't like a romance book or anything like that. But the thing that I loved about this book is Sam and Sadie make so many decisions that are a little bit frustrating, but more than that, they make decisions that I think real people would make, and the characters in the world felt so real. Like, I distinctly remember when I finished this book, I had to like convince myself that they weren't real people and that everything in this book wasn't real. I was so emotionally touched and moved by this book, and I just felt like I had made new friends after reading this book. I absolutely loved it. I annotated it so fully. Like, it's covered in tears, it's covered in tabs. I just love this book so much. And so yeah, this is definitely a book that for me was an addictive fiction story, it would definitely get me out of a reading slump. So I love this book. And lastly, I wanted to end by recommending you guys none other than Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I absolutely love this book. I, to this day, don't have any idea how I would rank all of the Taylor Jenkins Reid books that I have read because I love basically all of them, and this one is no exception. In this book, we're following our main character, Carrie Soto, who in the past had set the world record in tennis for like winning the most important tennis matches, Grand Slams. I'm not a tennis girl. You don't need to know tennis to read this book, but she had set some huge record in tennis and then retired. That it's years later and her record is about to get broken. And so Carrie Soto decides to come out of retirement, retrain, and try to break her own record. And so we follow her as a crazy, independent, driven, motivated woman. It's definitely what I would describe as addictive fiction, a page turner that you just have no idea how things are actually going to turn out. Like, is Carrie going to achieve her goal? We don't know. You don't know up until the very last second. She's a character that I just did not want to say goodbye to. And again, I do think that's really important for a slump, is caring about the characters, because you want to be emotionally invested in them and you want like everything to work out for them. And Carrie was definitely a character like that for me. Highly recommend picking up Carrie Soto is Back if you guys are in a reading slump. This one is such a good book, in or out of a reading slump, but I absolutely love this one. Those are all of my tips and tricks and also book recommendations that I think are going to be good for getting you guys out of a reading slump. As I said before, if you have any tips and tricks or books that you want to share with the community, please go ahead and leave a comment down below and we can spread some book love. And of course, if you guys made it all the way here, comment down below a tennis emoji for Carrie Soto so I know who made it all the way here. Don't forget to check out Quince. You guys can use the links in my description box. As I said, I love them and I love their products. So thank you so much again to Quince for working with me on this video. And I think that's going to be it from me. I hope you guys are having a great day and a great reading month, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.